What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to the Gravity Podcast. I am one of your hosts, Chris. Thank you for choosing to tune in today. Hey, folks, we're back at it. How do you stay grounded in a world full of noise and chaos? What are your foundations? You know, I've talked about it a lot, but for Jaimie and I, it's our family, it's our faith, it's our core values that help us stay grounded, that help us get perspective when the world around us is full of noise, full of chaos, full of concern. And we have to have that North Star. We have to have something to allow us to evaluate what's going on here. Is this something worth fighting over? If so, well, then let's get ready to fight. But most of the time in my life, a lot of stuff isn't worth getting carried away with. Now, I'm not saying that we don't draw a line. We don't enforce a standard. I'm just saying it's not usually worth going full battle mode with people and really ready to fight them. Today's guest, I'm super excited for you to hear today's guest, Canadian police officer and author Mark Bouchard. I have his book right here. If you're watching on YouTube, if you're listening, just close your eyes and picture a beautiful black book that is titled Setting My Sights on Stigma, Thoughts from an Injured Mind. He does a really good job of just breaking it down in a way that is something you can use. I've read a number of books, and you know, as people tell their story, as I've shared my story here on the podcast, stories are good. It gives reference. It gives you perspective of why someone arrives where they do. But what Mark does in his book is he really sets up the reader to have like tangible takeaways, things that you can actually do something with to improve your life, to improve your brain health, and to enjoy life. So I'm excited for you to hear from Mark, whether you read his book or not. I'm excited for you to hear from him on his podcast because he gets into a lot of details just during this episode. But before we do that, folks, I want to talk about Service Peace Warriors. Service Peace Warriors is a 501c3 nonprofit that's dedicated to our nation's heroes. That's right, the men and women that have retired, that have left military service and have either a physical or a mental injury. Service Peace Warriors has their back. They raise up all the money. They train both the service animal and the veteran, and they equip the veteran with the healing power of a service animal. Now, of course, Service Peace Warriors, you've heard me say it, they didn't stop there, folks. They went one step further and started Maddox Dog Training Academy. And they used the proceeds from the for-profit Maddox Dog Training Academy to further fund Service Peace Warriors, but then also to equip first responders with the healing power of a service animal. That's just great stuff, folks. If you haven't checked them out before, please check them out today, servicepeacewarriors.org. And with that, let's get into this interview with Mark Bouchard. Mark Bouchard, welcome to the Gravity Podcast.
Hey, brother. Awesome to be here. Thank you.
How's your week going? I mean, we're only on Monday, I guess. But, yeah, how's your week going so far?
It's great. I took today off work so I could come do this and join you. Super excited. I've been listening to the show for a while and I really enjoy it. So thank you for having me on.
Yeah, wow. Took a day off for me. Wow. I've talked to my wife about that. I can't remember the last time she took a day off for me. No, I'm just playing. Hey, Mark, for folks that don't know who you are, do you mind giving us a brief introduction of who Mark is?
Sure. I'm a police officer up here in Canada, about 17 years. I work with the RCMP, did about 10 years in our SWAT team, about almost 10 years in kind of peer support type work, 14 years with a Vancouver suburb called the Delta Police Department. And I recently took a promotion into our national tactical medicine program. So helping coordinate a lot of medics across the country for the RCMP.
I love that. And so you guys have a national program. Is this a mandatory training or process that all tactical medicine operators go through in order to get that certification or?
Yeah, basically We probably got around 150 medics across the country. Just for our the RCMP basically functions as like a national, provincial or state, and then a city kind of police force. Like basically is all of them. You can kind of
Wow.
transfer around between them. So
Yeah.
we have medics in all kinds of different positions. And yeah, to be a medic in our program, you'd have to do like a base level paramedic course, so like a 3 week course, or you might be able to get it done in two, and then some basically like some trauma medicine stuff. So another approximately 2 weeks. We call it SRM TCM, but truly it's more geared towards like trauma battlefield type medicine. And then that's when you'd start as a medic from there and grow from there.
And we're talking about law enforcement medics. So this isn't a pathway for people that want to be like a paramedic on an ambulance or something like that. This is for law enforcement personnel that are also have this medic certification. Is that correct?
Yeah, so there's kind of different ways it's run. Some run like, tactical medics that are civilian paramedics that come and help law enforcement. The RCMP runs police medics. So every one of them would be police officer. Many of them would be like I was, like a SWAT member on the team who's
Yeah.
also like fully trained. We call it emergency response in the RCMP, but truly it
Yeah.
is the SWAT team.
Yeah.
So there'd be a bunch of that, but some would be support medics where they're working directly with a SWAT team, or sometimes with like the riot team, like up here we call it TSG or TAC troop, different terms for it.
Yeah.
And then they support all kinds of operations from, the dive team to explosives to you name it, anything that's needed, truly.
I love it. That's awesome. What got you into policing in the first place? I mean, this is yeah, what got you into it?
Thank you. Great question. Like a lot of people, a little bit hard to say. For me, I would guess it's that I saw my parents' business getting broken into a lot. My dad is still an accountant. He's 77, runs his own accounting firm, absolutely loves
Yes.
it. He has a passion for saving people money on their taxes. I've come home telling him crazy stuff about work, and as soon as I take a breath, he'll be like, "But Mark, your brother just saved someone $10,000 on their taxes," you know. So, anyways, they had a business that would get broken into a lot all the time. And they'd always find a new way. They'd break in the neighboring business and cut a hole through the wall. They'd drive a truck
Holy
through the front of the
smokes.
business. They would steal the vehicles out of the business. And just it bothered me, right? It's wrong. And you want to do something about it. And
Yeah.
then I was finishing university, I was getting a degree, and then you kind of looking around at what to do. Debated going into teaching. I actually really enjoy working with kids. I'd done a lot of coaching. And then I heard you could be a school liaison officer. So I decided to become a cop and have kind of like mini careers where you could go be a school liaison and work with kids for 6 years or something. And then you can go and be a fraud investigator and all kinds of things. And I actually said that in my final interview with like senior management. They're like, what do you want to do? And I said, oh, I want to be a school liaison and maybe a fraud investigator. And they all burst out laughing because they're like, everybody comes in here and they want to do dogs and canine and homicide. I'm like, no, I just really want to work with some kids. And yet I ended up doing 10 years on what our SWAT team essentially.
Yeah.
Never really thought I would, but just kind of randomly wandered my way in. And as you start, then you try it and you learn to love the brotherhood, the bond, the connection. It's there in policing, it's there with your patrol squad. And then when you get on the emergency response team where I went, that bond, I'm sure you'd know from your experience. It's why you do it. You do it for the person next to you. You do it because you have that love for your teammate, your coworker, your best friends, truly, right?
Yeah, totally. Mini careers. I've never heard anyone call it that before. But Mark, that is a really good descriptor because I was a school resource officer and the job of being a school resource officer, school liaison officer was very different than being a patrol officer. Yes, I still wrote police reports. I still arrested people. I still processed evidence, right? But it was just so different. And then when I was on the SWAT team, totally different work. I mean, yes, it's still the same end, creating a safe community, responding to emergencies. But I felt like with each of those jobs, like when I would transition into a new specialty or when I would go back to patrol, sometimes when I was transitioning out of a specialty, I would get like this second wind. You know what I'm saying? Like I would fall back in love. Like if I was leaving a specialty and going back to patrol, I'd be like, man, I miss this patrol stuff. Like, I mean, I genuinely like being a patrol officer, but I never stayed there very long because these mini careers, as you put it, would come up and I'd be like, hey, let's go try that out. This might be fun. And it always was.
Yeah, that's the way to do it. And I also find when you switch, you let go of a little bit of the problems you used to have. So like for me,
Yes.
you're on patrol. I don't know if you guys carry your workflow or if you send it off to the investigators, but for us, we carry the workflow. So you have your 20 files that are sitting on you and you feel this weight. But then when you're off, right?
Yeah.
You don't have to check your work phone on your days off. But now you leave patrol, you go to a spot where you don't carry a workflow anymore. Now it's long-term projects, but it's just a different, different type of work. And it's really healthy to, okay, I have this type of stress for a little while. I've learned these things. Now I take it over here and I apply it. And I don't know if you guys have tenure and stuff, but like in Delta, you would cycle back to the road. So you like for me, my first 6 years on the ERT team, then you go back. Now I'm a field trainer. So now I actually had a recruit for a month or so, and he's now on the team where you start teaching them the ropes. But hey, there's this thing that's kind of cool, and here's what I did, and then they learn to like it from there, and you kind of just trying to help mentor that next generation. And I
Yeah.
think it's one of the best things about policing is you can do different things. Like at one point, I really wanted to be a fraud investigator, and I still haven't done it. I've done a lot of frauds,
Yeah.
and it's partly that I got a lot of good stuff out of it because most of them aren't that smart about it, right? We often really under investigate fraud because there's not like a real victim at the end of the day. Like there is a victim, but like it's not the same as a person's crime or someone being assaulted. And we're so overworked that we just have to make some things go away. But man, I had so many good warrants and charges, and like when you actually get
Yes.
into the bad guy's house and you take a bunch of their stuff and you go give stuff back to innocent people, like
Yeah.
you feel so good about that. And it's the things where yeah, you could write it off in 3 lines, but I had some I carried for a year. And I would like I'll give you one example. I would just check the phone records. So it was an identity fraud. It had already been written off by another agency. And I got all the phone records and I went through all the numbers. And what I decided to do was phone the out of town numbers. Who do you phone out of town? Let me ask you, who do you think you're phoning out of town?
I'm only phoning family and friends. I mean, me
What I said,
personally.
man. That's
Yeah.
what I said. I'm like, who do you phone out of town? You phone your family. So I just phone them up. Hey, I'm a police officer. I'm from here. I'm like, their family probably doesn't even know. Sure enough, they were phoning their grandparents. And the grandparents say, oh,
Ah,
it's these guys. And yeah, by the way, they always have a new number. It always has a new name associated. Well,
yeah.
guess what that comes back to? A landline in the house that gets you your warrant. Now you can get in and then you find all kinds of stuff. I've done this numerous times where
Yes.
you take down the worst problem house in the community. And it all starts from one of these frauds that often we just write off as I don't got time for that. And I'm going to go get a coffee or whatever. Well, no, like let's actually dig in and try and help the community.
Yes. I had just gotten out of detectives. I'd been in detectives for 4 years. I was back on patrol. And our patrol officers don't carry workflow. You're a triage nurse. If you can make an arrest today, it's yours. But if it's going to take much longer, you ship it off to investigations. And there's exceptions. And if you ask your boss, hey, can I keep this case? I want to work it. A lot of times they'll let you. But yeah, I just get out of patrol or out of detectives. I'm on patrol, kind of loving life, not having the work cell phone ringing when I'm off duty, and just dealing with today. And when I'm off work, I don't. Someone else is working. Someone else is taking care of all that business, right? And so every day is kind of a fresh day. And I catch this case where it's an older woman, and someone calls her, a male voice calls her, and is extremely lewd to her on the phone. It would in Washington State it would count as telephone harassment would be the crime. But she's a vulnerable older adult and she felt afraid, genuinely afraid. So I call my Sarge and I'm like, "Hey Sarge, uh, I could solve this case by the end of the day if you cut me loose. Like I know how to get a telephone. When I was a patrol officer brand new out of the gate, I didn't know how to investigate this. I was like, you cut me loose for the rest of the day. I'll figure out who called this old woman." And he goes, "Do it." So he cuts me loose. I get a telephonic search warrant based on her being a vulnerable adult and the things that he said. I was able to get an expedited return from the company. Figured out who it was. He's a registered sex offender. And in the end, his claim was it was a wrong number, and he just got pissed at her and started saying, things to her. But I mean, he lived in our city, right? Like I was able to make a custodial arrest in the same day and take someone who has a history of victimizing vulnerable people and putting him in jail for doing this again. And it just felt good. Whereas, as a brand new patrol officer, I would have taken the initial report and not knowing what else to do, at best, I would have shipped it up to detectives. And they may have taken it, but it would have been dependent on how many homicides are we working right now? How many other cases are they? It's just there's only so much time in a day for our investigative division to handle all the stuff that they have to handle. So having that skill set as a street copper is huge because you can really, like you said, put a dent in some of this stuff.
I always come back to what would the public want us to do with our time?
Yeah.
I spent about a year on highway patrol, and I would just like we can set up roadblocks up here. I don't know if you guys can there. I think some places you can, can't, but it was awesome. Like my goal was to find 200 sober drivers every day, and I'll tell you, I often caught two or three drunk drivers
Yeah.
because you go tr and it was a rough town with a lot of issues. But if you just go interact with people, and I would say that, hey, Constable Bouchard, just doing some impaired driving work. And what does everyone say to you when you say
Thank
that?
you. Probably thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Exactly. That's what they want us doing.
The
So
the
like
sober the sober drivers say thank you.
I had numerous people I catch drunk driving who would thank me at the end of the day.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
you know what? Treat them with kindness and respect. Say,
Yeah.
hey, I'm here to make sure you don't kill someone. Don't die yourself, blah blah blah. They don't need a lecture from you, but
Yeah.
you're in a place where you need some help because that's where this is heading. And at the end of
Yeah.
the day, I had multiple people where you literally have arrested them, they've taken their car, they're going to cost thousands of dollars, and they're still thanking you because
Yeah.
maybe you did save their life.
Yeah. No, I can't say that I always aimed for that. I aimed to treat people with respect regardless. And I've booked a number of people into jail, people that I've used force on. Like I had to physically fight them into a pair of handcuffs, right? And then I'm booking them into jail, and I've had a number of those folks say thank you. And I'm like, what are you thanking me for? I'm sitting there thinking, you don't like me. And it comes back to a lot of times it's respect. And even on the street, people don't feel respected. And people from rougher upbringings, they don't feel respected. And so when you can give people that, just the general respect of being a human being, it doesn't mean I'm not going to fight you. If you're under arrest, you're under arrest. I'm going to use lawful force to put you in handcuffs. But people appreciate respect.
Yeah. And some of those same people that will benefit you in the future. If you
Oh,
need to do an interview with them, you need to talk to them at another file. Like at the end of the day, the community is only so big. And at that time, I was working in a town with maybe 10,000 people. Well, you're also going to run into that person at the grocery store with your kid. Like,
yeah,
so there's if they really want to, there's going to be some payback. And we just have a job to do. Like, that's one thing I thought was use of force. The saying I used to like was play it as it lies. I'm not here to go use force. I'm not here to go find a way to do it. You decide your behavior, your action, and I'll give you every chance I can to try and talk you out of it. But if you are acting violently, aggressively, hurting other people, whatever, then like you've made that choice and now you're putting me in that position. But you're not going out of your way to treat people with disrespect. There's no winning by like beating someone up. It's just you're
yeah,
doing your job. I have a job to do. It's to keep the community safe. And
yeah,
unfortunately, sometimes people like you've probably seen this with use of force, where I can do this. I'll give you an example. I had a guy trying to fight me one day, and kind of like what you would expect, like a homeless, drug addicted, frail, um, problematic person in the community. And he's coming at me with, like, I describe it like a 1920s boxer. Like his hands are up kind of like this, and he's like half gonna fall over. And I could have tasered him, I could have pepper sprayed him, I could have whatever. And instead, there wasn't had enough space, time and space. I backed up, gave him a little chance to give up, and he did. And it wouldn't have been wrong if I'd used force. He was an assaultive person, he was aggressive, all that. And if there'd been people everywhere, I would have had to do it immediately. But okay, maybe I have a little more time today that I can actually
yeah,
take a second and try to de-escalate if possible. Because let's de-escalate what we can. But I think there is that realization that you can't de-escalate everyone. That's reality.
yeah. And I'd even argue you can't de-escalate anyone. You can create an environment where they either de-escalate or not. You can contribute towards that positive de-escalation environment by creating time and space and using tactics. But I don't know that you can. I mean, I've been on. You can throw all of the really good time tool and tactics into a situation, and someone may choose. I am not going to de-escalate. This is who I am. This is what I'm doing. I'm making this decision. I'm fighting you. But you can also choose to escalate a situation. I feel like, right? You can walk in and spin a situation up and make it go a whole lot worse. But yeah, I was, as you were saying that, I was thinking of a lot of events that I had where we could have used significant more force, including lethal force. But thankfully, we had time tool and tactics, and in some cases, we had armor, and that allowed us to give a person more time to give up. One guy in particular, in fact, it's the closest I ever got to shooting someone while I was on the SWAT team. And one of our assistant team leaders was able to get an angle on him behind cover and deploy a taser. And ultimately, that got him to drop the rifle, fall to the ground. But we would have been totally righteous based on his distance to us and him being armed to use lethal force. Thankfully, the situation allowed us to do something different.
Well, let's touch on that for a minute because I think that's such an important topic. It's something I didn't really understand because, and I don't know what it's like for you guys, but up here, you get taught firearms, but you don't really get taught lethal force psychology. And like I got into 10 years of SWAT work because as a patrol guy, I had my first suicide by cop attempt where someone pointed an imitation firearm at me and I did not shoot them. I was not ready for it. It rocked my world and it led me down a really dark road of like basically PTSD,
Yeah.
trauma injury and like constant nightmares. And because I so badly didn't want to shoot someone and I didn't
Mm,
understand that. And I didn't understand how powerful our resistance to using lethal force was and
yeah.
how that's where the training comes in. Like, Dave Grossman would call it like operant conditioning, right? That's really what we're doing. We're enough scenario training. You're rehearsing the same thing so you're ready to do it when needed. And
Yeah.
I've now, like you, had several of these situations where you're so close. Like I've had three, suicide by cop attempts, and somewhere again, I was as close as can be to shooting someone. And I don't think much of society and the public really understands that. When they hear of a police shooting, I think there can be this inference of like, well, shooting bad, cop did bad. You're like, hold on a minute.
Yeah.
Like this, the subject, whatever term we want to use, like they just killed like three people. They had a
Yeah.
loaded gun and they were doing all this dangerous stuff, and like these kids are in danger. This person's a hero for what they did, and often much like in my cases where I didn't shoot, I was really, really impacted by this. This devastated me for years. And I know some people where they do go through a shooting, and the same thing, it can really devastate them. But I think it's so important to educate both the public and police officers on lethal force psychology. Like, we really need that training. What was your experience like, Chris?
Yeah. I did struggle with that call shortly after. What did help was the fact that I was with the rest of the team. It's like right after that call when we did our debrief, operational debrief, our team leader applauded us because of our restraint. But it really again came down to if I would have been on that same call all by myself, I don't know that I would have stopped. I think I would have had to use deadly force. But in this instance, I had armor that we were standing behind. Still had some vulnerability up here. Had Kevlar helmet on, right? But I still right here below the forehead and down to the chin. I mean, I was vulnerable, right? This person could have pointed this rifle at us and shot us. But the fact that we were there in a team environment allowed us to use other tools. But I still, even with that, I still struggled. I still struggled because it was like, I remember in my initial training in the basic law enforcement academy, hearing examples like what this guy did that day. He was suicidal, had the gun in his own mouth as he left his house and as he marched directly towards the team. And I mean, I had heard that scenario and I had heard trainers say, you need to use lethal force. He's getting closer to you. He's going to be more accurate with that rifle. The chances of him killing you at this point, action beats reaction. And it's all true. It is all 100% true. But I did struggle with it a little bit. Just the fact that, I took my firearm off safety. And I don't know about you, but I've always been trained. You do that as you transition down to trigger and as you press the trigger. So I mean, I had gone to fire and was coming down to the trigger, and I'm sitting there thinking to myself, why isn't anyone else shooting yet? And then my assistant team leader deployed the taser. I mean, it was all very, very microseconds when these things are taking place. And just that feeling as soon as that guy fell to the ground and dropped the rifle, it was like that. But so I'm kind of talking around, not trying to talk around it. I feel like I'm saying a lot to say there was preparation. I feel like this was 2005 when I went through the basic law enforcement academy, and we did have preparation for the human beings typically don't want to kill each other. And so you have to be ready to do this to protect yourself and to protect citizens or other officers. But You can't totally train for it. I mean, you can do real scenarios, you can do tabletop drills, you can do all kinds of things to try to get yourself ready for that moment. But then even as all that stuff is happening, you have the American public for me, and I don't know how the Canadian public is, but the American public that has a mindset of cops are killers. Anytime a cop kill or shoots someone, uses lethal force, it's bad. Cops are bad, and and so there's a real fear by officers that if I do my job, if I do it lawfully for the right reasons to keep myself and other people safe, I still might get charged with a crime. Not I'll get investigated. We know that. We're going to be investigated for a homicide no matter what. But I might get charged with a crime, even if it is clean and legit. And that fear, I think, goes back to our core human piece of, oh boy, do I wait just a little bit longer? Do I hesitate? And really, I'm sure you know, hesitation could mean that person killing other people. Hesitation could mean that person killing us. So there's a lot going on here. I agree with you. There needs to be more education. And I think there's a lot going on in the mind of a police officer in 2025 of what do I do in this situation? What do you think?
I strongly agree with you. One of my best friends, his name's Jordan McWilliams, and he got charged for shooting a hostage taker at a SWAT call, right?
A
Like literally,
hostage taker.
yeah, yeah. I write a little bit about it in my book there, but so it was 2012. It's called the Starlight Casino hostage taking, hostage rescue, and the subject goes to. He's been stalking his ex. He's already been in jail multiple times over it. They had a police surveillance team following him and everything. Still gets released. He goes to his ex's workplace and takes her hostage at gunpoint. Fires his working gun 3 times. The police come, many hours of standoff, kind of like what you were describing of suicide by cop. He ends up pointing the gun at his head for a long time. They do eventually rescue the hostage. The officers run out from cover, use their own bodies as a shield to rescue her. And after many hours of attempted negotiations and standoff, he points the gun at the police. It's all on video. There's no dispute of what happened. And Jordan was charged with second-degree murder. And that he eventually they dropped the charges without ever going to trial. Unfortunately, we've seen way too many officers up here having to go through that. And I know some down in the US and worldwide as well.
Yeah.
And I think it really is a problem where the public doesn't understand. I think most of society is very separated from their safety. And I think we're raised to think like violence is bad. Well, if the police used violence, then they did bad. They failed at de-escalating. They really don't understand that no, they're the the police are trying to de-escalate the situation. And as you said,
Yeah.
we're creating the opportunity. We're doing everything we can to give you a chance to surrender. But when you putting other people's lives in danger, and often
Yeah.
it's a person who is attempting to die, right? What we don't talk about, there's some research, like you can look at Rick Perron's PhD, where it's like about 30 some odd, 33, 35, up to about 40% of people, it's actually police shootings is suicide by cop. Now, if you the 40% is counting the ones who actually end up shooting themselves. However, we don't talk about that is the impact on the officers. And I'll give you an analogy. I write a little bit about it in my book, but I went to a call and I try not to share a ton of trauma, so I won't share like graphic detail, but ultimately it was a suicide in a vehicle where the person
Mm,
drives into traffic,
okay.
right? And I had to interview the driver that day who had driven a big truck and thankfully he survived. But he was extremely traumatized by what had happened, by someone else's suicide attempt, an actual suicide.
Mm,
This really traumatized that driver. And I
yeah.
think that a real comparison is for a lot of these cops who get in a shooting, they're like you and me. We just show up to work, want to help our community and do good. And how can I be of service? And then
Yeah.
someone's putting the community in danger. And now we're forced to keep the community safe. We're forced to use force. And then
Yeah.
that really impacts us in a negative way. And society can really struggle to understand it.
Yeah. No. Hey, you've mentioned it a couple times, the impact that this job has on us as human beings. You said that when you didn't fire that one time at the suicide by cop, it really it was a struggle for you, and you mentioned post traumatic stress. Let's talk about that for a little bit. What was that impact on you? How did you realize what was going on? I mean, for a lot of folks, you start having these symptoms, but but having the cognitive awareness, oh, this is post-traumatic stress. Uh, what happened for you?
I can tell you a little bit about the moment because I didn't know what an amygdala was at the time.
I don't think I did either.
But I would say to people, my brain screamed at me, shoot and move in the same instance. And I
Okay.
now think of it as my amygdala screamed at me. And it didn't say shoot and move. It just screamed two thoughts, shoot, move as loud as possible. And again,
Yeah.
different way my brain. So that's what it was like in the moment. And I got out of the way. I didn't do a good job of it. It wasn't effective. And then there was other officers at the other side of the door. It was a basement suite. So I thought I'd hear shooting. I didn't hear any. And one of the other officers who was with me said he just pointed a gun at us. And then I'm like, oh man, I got to come back up. So I come back up thinking I got to shoot someone. And now he's dropped the gun because the suicide by cop, a lot of times their self-preservation instinct kicks over. So he does drop the gun. Afterward, man, I was a wreck. I said to the boss that night, I'm like, I'm not sure I can work right now. Like, I think I went in the gym, did the reports and whatnot, and I couldn't even take another call. And honestly, that morning, my girlfriend had slept over. As soon as I walked in the door, she said, "Oh my God, what happened?" I just burst out crying. I just
Yeah.
broke down because that was the stress, that's you so badly don't want to. And I think what you described, I've twice been to the point where I've taken my gun off safe, thinking I'm about to shoot this person, and then both times did not end up shooting. They dropped the gun, and just the situation changed. Um, sorry, I kind of lost my train of thought. Where's it going with that?
You're going just how this impacted you and how you became aware. I mean, yeah, how you became aware of what was going on inside of you and what it was that was bothering you.
Yeah, okay. So yeah, I mean I could tell I was upset. Then we went back the next day, had like a debrief, and I think there was a real like moral injury aspect where the boss that night it was really trying to explain why we didn't do anything wrong. And we'd made a lot of tactical mistakes that kind of put me in that spot. So
Yeah.
that really bothered me. And I didn't know anything about PTSD or any of these symptoms. I just started reliving all these trauma nightmares. And no
Yeah.
one knew. I never told anyone. And then that led to the drinking. So you're coping in the wrong way, but again, I didn't understand it, and so it was like many years of that, and then it spirals. Now you're not sleeping. Now you need more caffeine, right? Now you need more drinking at night, and I often had so much fear of going to sleep at night,
Mm.
and yeah, eventually I ended up off work on stress leave. It really impacted me. It was actually after I had another suicide by cop. Because of that incident, I decided to apply for the emergency response team. Um, because I wanted to learn more and be better able to take care of myself. Then I had the second suicide by cop, and then that's when it really brought up more of that one. I think
Yeah.
to what you described, I would describe it as shame. Like I was shaming myself for not having shot someone. The first person pointed an imitation gun at me. The second person pulled an imitation gun in front of me and threw it on the ground. Um, but I so badly didn't want to shoot them, and yet I'm being put in this spot where that's my job, right? And
Yeah.
now
Yeah.
I'm risking my safety in not shooting them. So then I started learning so much about it that really helped me. But it's a long process to heal. And I've heard you talk a bit about this, but like I don't think of it as a disorder, my PTSD. I've been diagnosed with PTSD.
Yeah.
I had a trauma injury. I have a psychological injury,
Yeah.
and I was able to gain control of that and start healing. And I think
Yeah.
for anyone out there listening, if you're having the rage, the nightmares, the alcoholism, if you're having these symptoms, the best news is you get some control of where this goes. You don't get all the control, right? But you can choose healthy coping. I've heard you talk about sleep, Chris. Man, there's a reason I put a chapter all about sleep in my book. It's so crucial, but it's something that until you know it, you take for granted. And as
Yeah.
I now see those as like indirect variables, right? That, oh, I can control my sleep. I can control my drinking. Okay, I have control of things and my life will get better if I make good choices. It's just hard in the moment when you're suffering from the trauma to be able to make those good choices. But when you do and you start healing, like then your life gets better, right? What was your experience with it?
Yeah. I love just that. I didn't feel like I had agency. I didn't feel like I had control. I remember I was listening to a different podcast, Consequence of Habit, my buddy JT Frank over on the East Coast. And his isn't a first responder podcast, but I mean, he talks about the consequences of life choices. And in this case, drinking alcohol. And I'd been listening to his podcast for a while. And I remember thinking to myself, Chris, you got a problem. Whether you're defined as an alcoholic or not, it doesn't matter. You have a problem because you On Monday, after drinking all weekend, you think to yourself, I should probably give this a break. This next weekend, I'm not going to drink. And by the time you get to Thursday night or Friday night, depending on whenever my weekend would start based on that week, I was like, yeah, I'm good. It's been 4 days. I'm good. I clearly don't have a problem because I don't drink during the week. And if I wasn't drinking by 5 o'clock, I was anxious. If I wasn't drinking, I hadn't been anxious all week, not drinking, because I just don't drink during the week. But come drinking time, if I'm not drinking, I was anxious. There was just a ton of anxiety. Going to a kids event, I was like, oh my gosh, what time are we going to be done with this thing? 9 o'clock. That's putting a real cramp in my drinking time. And then I'd get home and I'd throw down 2 or 3 shots of tequila while my wife was using the restroom because I didn't want her to see that part, right? And then I'd make myself my mixed drink, which she was going to see. And so when I finally made the decision, that isn't even a great way of saying it. When I finally broke free of being in that rut, I think that's a good way of saying it. I think about the old Winnie the Pooh books, and I can't remember who would wheel the wheelbarrow down the same grass path over and over and over again. And eventually, you get your wheel in this rut. And getting a heavy wheelbarrow out of the rut is super challenging. But once it's out, it isn't. You just got to break it out. And so getting out of that alcohol rut was a big one for me. And then that created some opportunity for me to start realizing the other negative effects of my lifestyle, which was I wasn't getting good sleep, wasn't talking about the trauma, even though I knew I needed to. I was just using the alcohol to cover it up. But then all of a sudden, I started realizing how much control I had. And you go from almost having a victim mentality. I don't know if I would have told you that back then, but I need alcohol. I have a tough job. It just is what it is. To this liberating of I don't need alcohol. I am in control of this. And while I like what you said, you don't have complete control. I'm saying you have control of it. No, you don't. You might have a horrible night's sleep tonight. You might get 4 hours and wake up with a nightmare. Tomorrow's going to be a tough day. You only got 4 hours of sleep. So that's the piece you don't have control over. But you know what I do have control over? I'm going to take it easy today. I'm not going to get in any major conversations today if I can help it. Me and my wife, we start talking about finances. Hey, babe, I had 4 hours of sleep last night. I feel like garbage right now. This is really important. Can we talk about this tomorrow? Because I want to show up. I want to show up for this conversation. And right now, if I show up for this conversation, it's not going to be good. And that's the part you do have control over. That's the part you can cognitively go into and recognize. And the word I like to use is qualified. I'm not qualified for this conversation right now. I'm not qualified. I'm got garbage sleep last night. I feel horrible. Unless it is someone is hemorrhaging and we need to apply a tourniquet, I am not your guy today. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Well, again, I love what you're saying. Funny enough, you described a little bit of me today. I woke up at 4:15, couldn't get back to sleep. That does happen sometimes when I have some sleep issues and I had gone to bed a bit late. I just tried to make a good day out of it. And oddly enough, I was actually listening to your podcast in the gym this morning, heard you talking a bit about some of it, and thought, wow, that's some really good advice. The other thing I would say, to paraphrase a bit of what you just said, I was a victim to my PTSD diagnosis. Like that moment when I got told
Ooh.
I have PTSD, I went from thinking I can do anything into I'm broken, I'm useless,
Mm.
like that was a real shift in, oh God, I'm just this useless, never, I'll just be useless for the rest of my life. And then as I quit drinking and as I made a few choices, and we talk about it like it's easy. One of the hardest things I've ever done. Like I woke up at 9 in the morning and I was like, I need to quit drinking. And I actually said to myself, I can't.
Hmm.
That's a hard thing to say. And I broke my goal down so small, and maybe it comes from stuff like the SWAT background where I said, "Can you go an hour?" I'm like, "Yeah, it's 9 in the morning. Like I don't drink till nighttime. Okay, go an hour, right?" And like I literally wrote on my whiteboard on my fridge, "I won't drink today." And it's that small. And then the next day you celebrate. I didn't drink yesterday. I won't drink today. And I made a list for a week because a month was too big. I'm going for a week. And once I
Yeah.
hit a week, I made a goal for a month. And once I hit a month, okay, now I got control of this. Like now
Yes.
I'm in a place where I'm basically a non-drinker who will have a social drink when it's reasonable. Like
Yeah.
if my wife says, "Hey, let's celebrate. It's our anniversary. Let's have a glass of wine." Awesome. Sounds great. And
Yeah.
I now got back to a place where I can, and I say that with caution. Like there's some people who maybe they shouldn't do that. Maybe you're just
Totally.
you get to none and just stick at none. But I've got to a place where, hey, we had a game with the guys. Let's have a beer after. Okay, awesome. But I might not have any for a week or two, and then I might have two tomorrow. That's okay. But it was a really hard reset to get back to that point.
Yeah. I think you have to ask the question of, like, for me, um, I was drinking always. I was drinking to celebrate. I was drinking to mourn. I have one buddy. His rule is I will never drink because it's a bad day. The only thing I'll drink because of is to celebrate something. And for him, that's kind of what you just described. He'll have a drink or two a week, with his wife, but that's what he consumes. Whereas me, I didn't want a drink or two. I wanted 5 or 10, right? And
Yeah.
I wanted it to celebrate. I wanted it to deal with that dead body I saw today and had to touch. I was using it for all of that. And so people have to get real with themselves. And I think this is a big piece. Not only get real with yourself, but let the people that are closest to you speak into your life. My wife told me, this was a week or two before I went dry. Hey, babe, do you think you should give alcohol a break? And I told her, do you want to be my wife or do you want to be my mom? Right? Wrong response. The human, literally the human I trust most in this world is my wife. Absolutely trust everything about her. I think she usually 90 whatever percent of the time has my best interest in mind. And I told her to shut up pretty much. So I don't know. Do you welcome close friends, religious people? And what I mean by that is, like a priest, a pastor. Who do you allow to speak into your life like that? Because at that time I wasn't letting her. I do now, and I usually do, but alcohol was a taboo at that time. Who do you let speak into your life to be like, hey, Mark, you're kind of being an a-hole?
We need people around us to do that. And
We
I don't know if I have an exact answer of who, but like I don't know what your experience is like being on the SWAT team, but like you work with some of your best friends and your brothers. But it's
Yes.
also like how do you like do you know the number of guys I've seen who have a drinking problem in the course of my career?
Oh
And
yeah.
how do you talk to someone about that? Because it's like often I'd say almost universally to my experience so far, they can't see it and they don't want to know it and they're not willing to hear it. So instead, you create space for it to me and I tell them about my experience, but I don't push
Yeah.
it on them. I don't say
No.
that, hey man, you need to quit, you need to do this. It's like, hey man, when I quit, like my life got better, my symptoms went down, blah blah blah. But you're just planting a seed and you have to let them come to it. And I'd say the same in my life. I have people I really trust. I'm very fortunate for the amount of people I love and that love me. And I had a lot of people have some tough conversations with me of like, hey, we're really worried about you. I had a bunch of people ask me if I was suicidal, right? To
Yeah.
that level of extreme because they could see my life was falling apart. So how about for yourself? Like, who's worked well for you or what's worked well for you?
Yeah. I agree with what you just said. I think when it comes to me towards other people, I'm going to live my life, and hopefully if you see something positive out of that, you'll come to me and ask. And that's my opportunity to speak truth into your life. That's my opportunity to tell you, you got an alcohol problem, dude. But I didn't go around throwing it on people because, again, like you said, people aren't ready to hear it. I think it really comes down to you almost have to solicit those kind of relationships. I mean, for me to allow someone to be, you brought up SWAT. In SWAT, we did debriefs. That's really where I was trained how to do a really good debrief. Open, honest, and professional. Those were our rules on the regional SWAT team I was on. When we did a debrief, it didn't matter whether you were the newest guy in the door or the team leader. We were going to be open, honest, and professional with each other. If the team leader didn't own his stuff, someone was going to call him out on it. We did a training mission one time, and the I was number 2 through the door. The assistant team leader was number 3, and it was a hostage situation. So instead of hooking right and getting a deep corner, instead I responded to the hostage situation and I L'd out with the number 1 guy, and we took out the hostage taker, and then I got shot in the back. And my assistant team leader looked at me and said, "You did it wrong. You were supposed to hook right." And I was like, "That's an unknown threat." I knew this guy was a threat. I went towards the threat. And he looked at me and goes, "You're right. I was wrong. I should have fed off of you and I should have went deeper." Where else is that kind of stuff happening in our community where the boss it has someone on probation tell him, "Boss, I think you're wrong." And now, granted, if he would have been right, I'm sure he would have, laid into me a little bit. But he didn't. He paused. He reflected on what I told him, and then he agreed. But I only felt like I could do that because of the relationships that we had on the SWAT team. Not only allowed that, but expected that. And now sit there and think of my private life. Do I have relationships primarily with men, but I have some women as well? But primarily for me with men, do I have relationships where I'm allowing them to be that upfront with me? Meaning, okay, I'm married, been married 26 years. Let's say I start texting a woman on my phone that my wife doesn't know about. I'm not talking about business. I'm talking about, "Hey, how you doing today? What are you wearing?" You know what I'm saying? Am I going to allow some of my guy friends to look at me and say, "Chris, you're being a knucklehead. You want to destroy your marriage? You keep texting that woman. But doing anything behind your wife's back is not going to help you." Or am I going to be like, "Hey, that's my private life. None of your damn business." Right? And and do I have men that are like that? Yes. I don't have like right now. I have someone that I'm meeting with like weekly that we go out and ride together because I'm getting ready for this triathlon. And he's the type of guy that would totally call me on something. Totally call me out and just be like, "Chris, you're screwing this up as a dad, as a husband, as a man, whatever, area it is." But I don't have a lot of those relationships. I don't know, maybe that's good. I don't know how many of those type of relationships we can really carry on. You know what I'm saying? Because I mean that's a pretty big closeness for you to be willing to call people out and receive that feedback from a friend.
Yeah, you only have room to invest that much in so many people, right? I think of like my wedding party. Those are the people that like you invest in forever and you have that kind of stuff and you've had the, "Hey man, you're missing this, like you're screwing up. You need to hear it." Right? I've
Yeah.
had some tough conversations both ways.
Yeah.
And we need some of that. And we're not doing someone a favor if we don't. Like at the end of the day, really what you described within your team, like as you're saying it, I'm like, what a healthy culture where the
Yeah.
new person can tell the boss that they're wrong. Man, that's a healthy culture. And the other interesting thing is you're talking about debriefs. The interesting thing about a debrief, in my experience on an ERT team, 90+% of it is I did this wrong.
Yes. Oh, totally. You own your stuff. 100%.
It's very rare that someone's saying you screwed this up
Yeah.
because people are just going,
Rarely.
"I could have done this better. I could have done this better." That's
Yes.
how the debrief goes. And
Yeah.
it's part of why it hurt my feelings so bad when we had our tactical debrief of my patrol call that really bothered me when the boss was just saying everything was fine and nothing to see here. And you're like, hold on a minute. Like, we made some really bad tactical decisions that were driven by the boss and nothing against him. He didn't have the training to do it better. I'm not trying to say it to disparage him, but
No.
to have a healthy culture, we need to be able to have that accountability of, whether that's on a SWAT team, whether that's in a marriage, a family, anything like that. You just want to be able to take accountability and in a respectful way, hold that other person accountable, but also hold yourself accountable.
Yeah. Hey, I wanted to ask you a question. We're getting further on here in time. In your book, Setting My Sights on Stigma, one of the things I like that you wrote, I really like the way you wrote this first of all. It was a really smooth read. And I've read a number of other law enforcement books, some really great books, but they're not always smooth to read. One of the things that you put in here, and it's early on. I don't know if this is chapter 3 or 4, but I've heard the phrase "it's okay to not be okay," which I totally agree. We need to push that out. Hey, if you're struggling, you need to raise your hand. It's okay. But I like that you wrote the inverse because sometimes I feel like we in trying to fix a wrong, we push really hard to the right. And in doing so, we get too far off to the right. And especially for the new folks that have only heard that from us in training and in mindset, they're missing out on this other perspective. And you wrote, "It's okay to be okay. It's okay to be okay." What did you mean by that?
Well, I've had friends even like they go through a shooting and they're like, what's wrong with me? Like, I'm not traumatized. I'm not having nightmares. And you're like, you trained like crazy, you did everything right, and you realize that you did everything right and you're not traumatized. That's okay. Right.
Yeah.
And I think like you and me can go to two different calls and one impacts you and one impacts me. For whatever reason, it's the identification with the victim. It's our kid is that age. It's I knew someone like uh, for whatever reason. But it's totally okay that it's you this time and it's me this time. And I think when I think of stigma, it's so easy, it's so much easier to apply to other people. A forgiveness lens of, oh, that person's impacted. Oh, that's okay. But we're so hard on ourselves, right? It's this like
Yeah.
comparison of, oh, but that person went to that call too, and they're not, they're fine. Okay, well, maybe they'll be affected by the next one. Like, but we're so hard on ourselves about that. And I really like that, it's okay to not be okay. It's also okay to start doing something about it. If that's you, like you've talked a bit about your experience and mine, like part of why I do this stuff is I want to be that role model to show, leave the breadcrumbs on my healing journey is really what my book is meant to be, which I think is a
Yeah.
part of what you're doing with your podcast. But I think it's also just as important to say it can be totally normal to go do hard things and sometimes, yeah, I know I'm good. Like and I really see that from a peer support lens. I've done a lot of peer support, and sometimes it's no man, I'm good. Like, okay, awesome. That's great to hear. Like I'm really happy. That's awesome. We're here for the next one, right? And for the times that you aren't, we're here to listen and be empathetic and support and help educate. But we don't want to kind of like pathologize and make people think they must be wrecked by something. No,
Yeah.
it's meant to be that even when you get impacted, it's meant to be that you could build resilience from it. As you learn, you grow, you heal, that those the hardships you go through, right? It's almost like a workout. You go through the hard thing and you get stronger after. Well, that can be the same mentally, psychologically too, right?
Yeah, totally. Hey, and again, this is me totally, as usual, not working off any type of an outline. Let's talk about some of those breadcrumbs. What were what was part of your healing process of healing of your injury?
Number one thing is take action. Be an active participant. You're not a victim to what's happening to you. You don't get all the control, but you get some control. So back to this accountability. You need to take accountability that you're not just just this is just something happening to me. The waves are crashing into me. No, grab your paddle and start doing something about it. And yeah, you may be paddling upstream. It might be harder. That to me is the biggest thing. Connection with others. Like I write a lot about trauma. There's a great book called The Body Keeps the Score by Bessel van der Kolk. Really helped me to understand my own experience with trauma. Um, so yeah, connection with others. That's what Bessel van der Kolk writes is our number one protective factor from trauma. It's that we regulate each other, whether that's talking to someone. It can be as simple as give someone a hug. I had a friend did a terrible next of kin, terrible quadruple fatal on the highway. And all I did that day when I saw her, we were both crying. I just gave her a hug. That's it. There's nothing I can say. I can't make it better. I can't make it not happen. Here you go. I care about you. And there's chemical changes happening and oxytocin and all kinds of stuff. I don't have to understand it all. I just know it works, right? It's that
Yeah.
ability to care, that ability to listen, to just be present and give space to it. We don't have to always fix it. Um, Seeking professional help, like that's one part of it, but it's not the only part. Because like when I was on stress leave, I had 1 hour out of the week that I was going to see the psychologist. Okay, and this is how I looked at it. I'm like, well, they pay me 40 hours a week. I'm going to spend the other 39 trying to get better. And what were those things? Get out in nature. My
Yes.
psychologist said, go to the beach, watch the waves, and practice your breathing. And what do we often hear in the culture? Oh, that person, they're on stress leave. I saw them at the golf course. They're faking it. What if that's what they need to do to heal? Because I'll tell you
Yeah.
what's not going to heal them, sitting in their basement getting drunk by themselves. But maybe going out in nature and doing something active and getting some sunlight will help. So I like for everyone it's different. I learned to like gardening, I learned to like yoga, just all kinds of things that, I started doing stand-up comedy, improv comedy, like
Oh wow.
anything that brings you connection, that brings you some level of, just positivity, good. Try things.
Yes.
Because I don't know what it'll be for whoever's listening. I don't know what it'll be. But if you are someone impacted by these things, try something. Believe that a better future is possible. Know that you can help be a part of getting there and decide what am I going to start and try this week, today, right now, that can help me to get there.
Yeah. And you know what? If you try something and it doesn't work for you, you just successfully found something that doesn't work. And now you can check that off and move on to something different, right? Yeah.
Yeah, that go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I've been doing a bunch of half marathon and triathlon training. If you listen to me, you think you are totally crazy. Yes, I am partially totally crazy. In fact, I've had a doctor confirm that. No, a little joke there, folks. But here's the deal: that like that's not your thing, then that's not your thing. Don't do it. Like it's a lot of work and it sucks sometimes, but I get these positive outcomes because I'm doing it, right? And so, yeah, like if golf is your thing, I have a bunch of friends that absolutely love golf. Like that's like happy place. That's like, oh my gosh, I get rejuvenated by going out on the golf course for 4 hours. Me, you're just gonna piss me off more. The damn ball doesn't want to go in the hole, and I can't figure out why, right? So that's not gonna work for me. So I love what you said there. Find what works for you and do that thing.
Could I jump in with one more there, Chris? Because I really like what you're saying. To nerd out a little bit on some of the science, part of what you want to do, in my opinion, is activate your parasympathetic nervous system. You want to do the things that make you feel safe, right? That's where the connection, the hug, get a massage, whatever that is. Here's some concrete, tangible things that you could try that have helped me. One is like temperature regulation, basically a sauna. I bought a sauna. It's great. When I have a sauna at night, I sleep better, 100%. Like without a doubt. Another one, watching the sunset. Never would have said I would like that.
Yes.
Like if you told me that 10 years ago, I'd have said, whatever, you're a loser. That's stupid. The reality is, I started doing those things just like experimentally with suffering from trauma. And
Yeah.
then anecdotally, I'd find I slept better. And then I started doing it more and more, and I learned to really love it. That there's something about the lights, the color of the lights. It's really good for us to get morning sunlight. That'll help us to be able to sleep better at night, but the kind of color of the light with the sunset will help you. It also helps because we spend so much time in this heightened state, whereas now you have this like panoramic gaze, something I learned from Andrew Huberman, so that you're
Yes.
actually you're using science to help yourself. Again, instead of just being this victim, it's cool. These are concrete things I can do that, again, those have really helped me with my sleep and my trauma. Yeah, so if anyone wants to try them, I highly recommend it.
Yeah, I highly recommend the Huberman Lab podcast. Oh my gosh, it sounds like you nerd out on his stuff, and I totally agree. He
Yeah.
brings so much. I think I'm trying to think of his phrase, zero cost to consumer. Zero cost to consumer, practical things you can do in your life to live a healthier life, to get better sleep. And he's just fun to listen to too. Doesn't
Yeah,
get very
true.
political, it's just science, folks. It's just science. So I love it. Hey Mark, you know what you and I just proved today? That Canadians and Americans can get along. You and I just proved that, with a
That's awesome.
I was thinking about it throughout this and I thought maybe I don't say, what? Screw it. It's my podcast. I can say whatever the heck I want. And that's the one thing I find oftentimes when I'm talking to coppers from Canada, like it's not even like we're from this different countries. Like because our experiences are the same. I mean, there's some detailed differences, but when it comes to you being on ERT, when it comes to me being on SWAT, a lot of our experiences are the same because we're engaging human beings that are in crisis, that maybe have done some bad things or they're just in a bad way, and we're showing up to try to have better outcomes, right? I mean, it's the same work.
Yeah. The other thing I'd say I think we're both trying to do is pass on some of the wisdom that we've gained to the next generation. Those currently
Yes.
doing it, those who want to do it. Like, I wish someone had taught me a lot of this stuff. I would have had a way easier journey. And part of why I wrote my book was I actually had one day I yelled out in my kitchen, why the don't they teach us this? Because I was so angry that I'd suffered for so many years.
Yeah.
And I looked around at so many of my brothers that I loved, and I saw so many people suffering. And I thought, okay, I can't make them teach it, but they can't stop me. I'm going to do my best. And I really commend you for your leadership, that you've been willing to share your experience and share a lot of this wisdom, both as a cop, as a man, as a father, as a husband. Like, we need more of this in society. We need more of what you're bringing. Like, I enjoy listening to your show because I learn from you. Like, literally just this morning that you're, hey, you don't get a good sleep, don't have the fight today, don't have the argument. I could have used that advice today. Let me put it that way. So I appreciate the wisdom you're sharing. Again, thank you for the leadership you're showing for our community.
Oh, you're welcome, brother. And the same for you. Like I said, when I cracked open your book and started getting into it, I was pleasantly surprised. So, hey, for listeners that want to pick up a copy, if they're watching on YouTube, they can see me holding it up. For the audio only podcast, you're just going to have to close your eyes and mentally picture it, or pull out your phone to search it. What are ways that people can pick up a copy? I'm assuming it's on Amazon. Where else?
Yeah. So yeah, you can go to Amazon, amazon.ca, amazon.com. You can find it there. If you can't afford it, honestly, you can go to my website, plug in your email address. You can get a free copy of my ebook right there. It'll get sent out to you. I got a few free copies or free chapters listed on my website. Anyone can access. I never wrote it to sell it to you. I wrote it to help you. So anyone who wants it is welcome to have it for free.
Well, that's a lot of options for free. Try it out by getting into some free chapters on the website. Get the e-copy. I don't know about you, but I like turning pages. I like smelling paper. I like to grab a pen and put boxes around things that stand out to me, and that's what I enjoy doing. Hey, for folks that want to connect with you, Mark, maybe not just the book, but they want to, they like what they've heard today. Maybe they want to connect with you. What are ways that people can reach out to connect?
Sure. I have a website, just markbouchard.ca. I have like a contact me page there. It basically goes to my email, which is just mark@markbouchard.ca. And the other one I use as socials is basically LinkedIn. I would say just if you look up Mark Bouchard, you should be able to find me.
I love it. And for the listeners, I've made that really easy. All of those, the website, the LinkedIn, and Mark's email are down in the show notes. Mark, time is my greatest commodity. I can't make more of this stuff, and you've given me a lot of yours, brother. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It was a real honor.
Have a great day.
You too, buddy.
Wow, folks, what did you think about my interview with Mark? I didn't say this to Mark. So, Mark, if you're listening this far into the episode, this is the first time you've heard it. I was going into the interview going, oh, I got that podcast interview to do today. Not looking forward to it, folks. Not looking forward to it for no good reason other than, I don't know, I guess I was wanting to be a sloth. Now, I had some other things going on, and I was kind of in my mind with those. And I was like, no, I need to pivot, get over to this podcast interview. And then I just really enjoyed the time that we had together. It was, and I did say this to Mark after hitting stop on the record, it was life-giving. It was a life-giving conversation where I walked away feeling uplifted from our conversation and not drained. So absolutely loved this interview with Mark. Hey, Jaimie and I want to hear from you. How are we doing here on the podcast, folks? There's a few different ways for you to communicate back to us. First and foremost, please follow us on whatever podcast platform you're listening on. That will cause the next episode to pop up in your dashboard. You can also rate and review us if you're listening on Apple or Spotify. There's 5 stars waiting on our main page. We'd really appreciate a 5-star rating. That will cause other people to be recommended to listen to this podcast. But folks, here's the deal. If we haven't earned your 5 stars, they're your stars. If we haven't earned them, you keep them. Instead, shoot me an email at chris@gravityct.com. Let us know how to make it better. Maybe Mighty Monday motivating ideas or guests for me to interview. Folks, we only get to live this life once. Let's go out and take care of the people in our tribes. Take care of each other. God bless.